welcome in our guy, Mike Prada. Mike, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Nothing like breaking news to snap you into it on a Monday, 30 minutes into the show. You got any hot Aaron Rodgers takes you want to fire off before we do the sport that you're better known at?
Hey, what happened to Aaron Rodgers? He got traded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Football. Sorry, I didn't even know. You just broke the news to me.
That's what we do here on live. That's why radio, it's not going anywhere, Mike. Podcasts are great, but we can be live.
He finally got traded. Okay, so this is finally happening. Okay, haven't we talked about this happening for 3 months? I don't really follow football as closely. Okay, so it seems like that's just the news. That's my reaction.
Yep.
Thanks for happening already.
Yep, nailed it. I think you crushed it. I think my job is now in jeopardy. You did exactly exactly what was needed. Unfortunately, there's also breaking news in the NBA that came out just before our show. De'Aaron Fox has a fractured finger or fractured fingertip. He's likely not going to play in Game 5. He's doubtful for that game returning to Sacramento. Do they have a shot of winning Game 5 against the Warriors without De'Aaron Fox?
I don't think so. Although, weird things happen in the playoffs, as you can see in this series, where you just sort of take a guy out when you spent so much time game planning as if they're there. Sometimes it just sort of really throws you off. We saw that in the Memphis series where the game Ja didn't play. There was sort of a is he or isn't he? And I think the Lakers really let down in that game too without him. And we saw it in this series with Draymond Green not playing Game 3 and that being the Kings' worst performance. That said, Fox pretty fundamental to what the Kings do. Seems hard to believe that they're going to be able to kind of, particularly in the fourth quarter where they've really won a lot of these games. Even Game 4, they outplayed the Warriors at the very end in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I don't see it. I know he's doubtful. I have no inside information. But doesn't this have shades of John Wall coming back from a fractured wrist against Atlanta? Don't you sort of have that parallel in your head?
I mean, maybe, but I don't know.
I feel like Fox is going to play.
I'm also scarred by the NFL, where I was a reporter for so long, where if you're listed as doubtful and then you play after being listed as doubtful, there's literally a league investigation as to why you were listed as doubtful in the first place.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that Kings broadcaster and ESPN broadcaster Mark Jones on Twitter said he has no inside information, but he said something like, I think he's going to play Game 5. And when I saw him say that, I was like, oh, okay, that might be meaningful. I'm trying to get the exact tweet, what he said. Guessing Fox is going to play Game 5. I don't think that he just puts that out there, that's all I'm saying, given how close he is to that team.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. He's also been on that series, so it's he's been around the team on top of just talking to people. He's
their broadcaster.
Right, right. He's their local guy for those that don't know. Whether he plays or not, Mike Prada is our guest, the Athletic NBA editor, author of the book Spaced Out, which is a must-read for any basketball fan. Regardless of whether he plays, Domantas Sabonis has to play a lot better. Are you surprised with how the Warriors have guarded him in this series, kind of treating him as a non-threat offensively in a very weird way, even though he's very fundamental to what they do offensively?
No, I'm not. I'm actually not too surprised. I mean, there essentially are two ways I think you can guard Sabonis. One is to do it this way, which is you play, whether it's Looney or mostly has been Looney, you basically sort of say, okay, Domas, you're not going to shoot the ball. Do what you want to do, but we're going to take away the rim from you, and that's where you dominate. So you play way off him. The other approach that I think is harder to do with most teams' personnel is you sort of almost play the opposite. You do like a QB spy almost, where you're only guarding him and you're bumping him full court and he's going everywhere, and you're trying to disrupt their dribble handoff game from the start. I don't think the Warriors have the personnel to do that anymore. I don't think most teams do. So to me, this is not a huge surprise how they're doing it. The thing is, Sacramento, if they could hit some shots, would be even better offensively. So to me, this is just sort of the nature of the matchup. There aren't a lot of guys that can play the way Looney is playing Sabonis, to play the way the Warriors are playing him, and make it work in the NBA. And they just ran into the team that makes it work. The flip side is Fox is kind of playing really well because of Fox, but I mean, how much of Malik Monk's success is due to being able to come off those Sabonis screens cleanly because there's nobody there. So even though his own individual offense isn't great, I do think that, to some degree, the Kings are right to just it's sort of an occupational hazard to how the Kings play. that they should probably accept. So I'm not too surprised with how that's turned out.
Gotcha. That's good insight. Mike Prada with us here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tonight, Bucks Heat game 4. Miami's up 2-1 in the series at home. Giannis, of course, hasn't played games 2 and 3. That tends to matter quite a bit. Most people thought Miami was dead in this series after Tyler Hero went out. Do you think Milwaukee is genuinely in trouble, or is it just a matter of waiting on Giannis and now everything will be fine?
Well, I guess the question is whether Giannis will be fine, even if he's playing. It should be noted, too, that he missed most of Game 1. I forget when he went out in Game 1.
True. I think it was the first quarter.
Yeah, so, I mean, he kind of essentially missed the whole series. I mean, I'm surprised by what's happened in this series. I thought that they were fine with or without Giannis. I was not particularly high on Miami. I thought they just didn't have enough scoring, but they had made shots in this series, and Jimmy Butler, without Giannis there, has been able to do what he wants against Jrue Holiday. You know, to have a guy, I think he likes to play against these smaller guys that are more physical with him, and he struggles more with length, you know, that go under those screens. You think about Anthony Davis in the finals a few years ago. You think about Giannis 2 years ago in the playoffs. So now having Giannis has really hurt there, and then you combine that with the shots that the Heat are making, and defensively, I just think the Bucks have played some dumb offense without Giannis taking a lot of quick shots. So I'm a little surprised it's at where it's at right now. And to me, if Giannis is healthy, the Bucks should win 3 straight games. But if Giannis isn't fully healthy, you know, they've dug themselves a little bit of a hole, and I think the supporting cast has seen some of its limitations, particularly when you look at playmaking. You know, they just don't have a lot of it. It's kind of a brute force team. And so there would be a lot that surprised me in this series. I mean, because frankly, it's already surprised me quite a bit. I don't know why this is a 2-1. I don't understand how this wasn't a sweep. So I'm still trying to figure that one out, I guess.
That Miami culture, it's something else. They seem to just always compete, and other teams would just I mean, it's funny because there's kind of this thought that, like, this team is over itself. Like, you know, Lowry's in a weird spot down there. You know, how invested is this player, that player? And it's like, you know, Duncan Robinson hasn't been seen in months, and all of a sudden he's hitting threes. And you're just like, what? How is it always them? How is it always the Heat?
Yeah.
And, it's never the Wizards. And we'll circle around back to that in a second. But it's always the Heat.
Yeah, you say that, but, I mean, the Heat got, like, spanked 2 years ago by the same Bucks team. So like it only feels like it's always the Heat when they do it. They've had plenty of first-round losses. I mean, it may just be as simple as, you know, without Giannis, the Bucks are kind of a slow team that plays a lot of drop covers, that plays a lot of kind of trying to protect the basket, and doesn't have a whole lot of supplementary playmaking. So it really comes down to who's making more shots. I mean, that's what happens. And the Heat last year were the best three-point shooting team in the league, and this year with a lot of the same personnel, they were like 28th. So their true level may be somewhere in between that. You know, you look at the 2 games they've won, 2 of the best shooting performances they've had. You know, it may not be. It's sometimes it's as simple as a make or miss league, and because the Bucks don't have Giannis as sort of that additional factor that's going to do what he does no matter what, they're in the make or miss league sort of spectrum too. You know, they're shooting a lot of one dribble shoot, a lot of pull up jumpers, and some nights those will fall like in Game 2, and some nights they won't like in Game 3. I guess in Game 3 they did fall, but in Game 1, and you know, Milwaukee's too good to be in a make or miss league, you know, shootout with a team like Miami, but maybe Milwaukee without Giannis isn't.
That's a good point. Mike Prada with us from The Athletic here on the Hoffman Show. The other game tonight, then I do want to circle back to the Wizards, but Grizzlies, Lakers, and LA up 2-1 in the series. They're favored in this game. Obviously, this is the pivotal game. You have all your stats about how when teams go up 3-1, it's like, well, yeah, they're way up in the series, and typically they're the better team. But, like, clearly
teams ahead in the series tend to win the series. Yes.
And by the way, Mike, 100% of teams that win Game 7s win the series too. So there's
really no way.
Yeah, that and Aaron Rodgers got traded. Did you hear?
Yeah, I heard that. Thanks to you.
On the Grizzlies front, though, is this one of those? I don't want to say it's a fundamental game, because if we say that and then they overcome the odds and they come back and win it in 7, then okay, they continue marching forward. But if the Grizzlies were to lose the series, is this one of those like fundamental fork in the road points for them where they seriously rethink about how they're building their team? Because it seemed like they were next, and if they were to get bounced in the first round in pretty embarrassing fashion, depending on how these next couple of games go, it does seem like that could be a changing point for that front office.
I don't think it's this for the Grizzlies as a whole, in large part because, I mean, they are dealing with some injuries. And honestly, like, what are you really – their core is their core. Ja, Bane, Jaren Jackson, some of those guys, they're young. This is a fork-in-the-road moment for Dillon Brooks' future with the Grizzlies. And I don't know if those are – I don't think those are the same things, but some people might associate them because Brooks has been there forever. To me, like, there was always in the back of your head as the Grizzlies were rising, there is always this question, at least in my mind, and I think if most people would admit the same thing, when will the Grizzlies graduate from what Dillon Brooks provides them? There was always this thought that, like, despite all of his flaws, despite his offensive shooting, despite all the BS that he does, despite sort of all the villain stuff and now the taking back the villain stuff and just honestly the immaturity and whatever, there was almost like you would say this about Draymond Green with the Warriors. It's like you need the bad you take the good with the bad. There's always a question of like whether that was actually going to be the case, or the Grizzlies were going to have to reach a point where it's like, look, we maybe Dillon Brooks is essential to get us here, but like we can't wait getting further with him as a key member of our team. That moment I think has arrived in Game 4. He was terrible in Game 3, as we all know. His words have kind of created a lot of controversy around this series. To me, like, he's playing for his future in this series and in this game. I think he's a free agent after the year. I believe he is. Like, to me, if they lose this series, I don't see how they can bring Dillon Brooks back. I think they have to move on. Now, I would say that that's different than this is a fork in the road moment for their team, because Dillon Brooks, for all the sound and fury, is not that important right now to their future. They have 3 building blocks that I think are more important, but I think a lot of the outside folks maybe would say that those are the same thing. So I guess that's how I would frame it. To me, this is like a referendum on Dillon Brooks, not on the Grizzlies.
I like the way you phrase that, because in a lot of ways, and there's a word you use too to describe Brooks, and that's immaturity, which is not something you want to be using to describe a 27-year-old who will be 28. By the time the summer rolls around, and he's an unrestricted free agent after the season. But like, it does feel like
he's
if this
the oldest guy on the team. He's
right.
The veteran. That's to your point. Like that's why I say the word graduate. Like at some point, you need that guy to get you somewhere, but like at a certain point in life, you grow up and you grow beyond them. So I've always thought in those terms with him.
No, definitely. And that's what I was going to say is, like, especially with this team, with some of the other issues they've had and some of the narratives about them and the trash talk, and like they kind of need to be more mature to get where they want to. They need to be more businesslike to get where they want to go. And he doesn't seem that interested in doing that. So I like that differentiation. Mike Prada is with us, right. Of course, a long time covering the Wizards and now the NBA's staff editor for The Athletic. So let's put your Wizards hat on, dust it off. I know it's not the most fun hat to wear, but we talk about the Heat and their identity, and obviously having that kind of same conversation with Memphis in a different light, but. One of the things that I've heard in talking to Wizards folks over the last couple of days since Tommy Shepard got fired last week is they need to figure out what their team identity is going to be. And there's a really good chance, I think, that if they can figure out a trade where Brad Beal agrees to it, because he has this no-trade clause that they very stupidly gave him, that it could be something that doesn't involve Brad. But if you're coming in and you're whoever gets hired as the lead executive, whether it's Tim Connelly or somebody else, what kind of identity are you trying to establish in DC that you think you can genuinely build into?
I think the best way to put that is the identity of this team, if you really want to kind of go back for the last 20 years and certainly beyond, is just let's just make the playoffs. That's what we're good for. We just want to be kind of in there in the conversation. We don't have this ambition. And if you really want to do something different, your identity has got to be got to be more ruthless. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, I think before we even talk about like kind of offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball, with with some exceptions, in Miami, you can kind of think of Pat Riley as the star of the team. Most of the time, those sorts of identity questions kind of stem from the star of your team or a great player. I mean, what was the Bucks' identity before Giannis? They got Giannis. It totally changed. Memphis's identity is different with Ja than it was with the grit and grind. It sort of stems from that. So, but from a franchise standpoint, it really just has to be, I think, about ruthlessness and kind of executive autonomy. I don't know how you read that press release announcing the departure of Tommy Shepard, but it almost read to me and I know this wasn't actually the case, but it was hard not to think this as I'm reading it. It's did Ted Leonsis just realize they missed the playoffs 2 days ago? We let him go because we didn't make the playoffs and our fans were disappointed, right? That was the language that you used?
Right.
Or something like that. It's you've known for 3 weeks that you didn't make the playoffs. So, to me, I don't really – something must have happened there, but to me that sort of speaks a little bit to maybe that benchmark is the problem. And what you really want from an executive is someone who has the free rein to manage up until, said that, we're not going to just kind of panic if we don't make the playoffs 2 years if it's in service to something bigger. If it's in service to a vision of some kind. We're going to take our lumps, We're going to have some years where, maybe we'll go 1963 and the league will laugh at us. But look at what Oklahoma City is. I mean, to me, that's the identity that has to be crafted for this team because it really hasn't existed for 40 years. And then from there, I mean, to me, if you find the best GM that you can, pay him what you want, give him autonomy. And you ask him, do you think we should blow this team up? If he says yes, you blow the team up. If he says no, you don't. I mean, that to me is the simplest way to put it, for them. And then from there, you just kind of you have to let the team play out. I think whoever takes over this job has got to manage up as much as anything. And the identity of the franchise has got to be, we're in pursuit of winning a championship. This incremental middle out way has not worked for 40 years. So maybe it will work for some other franchise. It hasn't worked for us. And that's got to be identity. And then let's see who our best players are, and we build off that. That's what I would say to that question.
Yeah, and I thought your colleague, Josh Robbins, put it really well when he joined us last week to respond to the breaking news that if you don't give the executive that autonomy to manage up, then you're self-selecting who your next person is. It is part of the interview process. If Tim Connelly or whoever comes in and is like, "Hey, I'm gonna want to explore Brad Beal trades," and Ted goes, "That's not on the table," then you're not getting that guy. Because why would you come here and put your reputation on the line, especially after Tommy gets blown out? In large part, executing what was thought to be a shared vision of building from the middle out.
Absolutely. I mean, the Tim Connelly thing is, I'm thinking from the outside here, maybe there's more information out there that I don't know, but he didn't come last time because when he made $3 million, now he makes $7-8 million, and he's got equity in the Timberwolves. I mean, you're going to get Tim Connelly. You better damn well give him what he wants. And by the way, I don't know if it's a good idea to get the guy who made the Rudy Gobert trade. But
I want to know a lot more about that trade before I sign up for that.
But that's the point. If you want to, you can't get a premium general manager with kind of conditions like that. You're just not going to be able to. The Wizards have tried the conditions thing for too long. I think it's clearly not working. Maybe there are some places where the owner can have conditions and you can be fine. I think it's pretty clear that it has not worked here to the degree of just. The fact that kind of the fans are disappointed they didn't make the playoffs, that was put in the press release. I don't know about you, but I don't think that most fans are upset that they didn't make the playoffs. You know what I mean? Not literally.
Right. No, they're upset that making the playoffs would have resulted in getting absolutely dump trucked in the first round, and that's been the case for 40 years.
Right. It's not. It's not meant literally when to say that. So, yeah. I mean. And if you're going to let Tommy go, then, you're going to have to find someone high-level executive. And, that person deserves autonomy. I mean, you need, I think, a David Griffin situation, or in New Orleans is the other one I kind of think of, where that guy has got to have reign you got to be willing to spend for him, and you got to do what he wants. And if he doesn't make the playoffs one year, you have to accept it and just keep staying the course. That's just what it has to be. And that's just never been what this franchise has been about. So until it happens, I'm skeptical.
That is skepticism well earned. Mike Prada, make sure you check out the book if you want more basketball X's and O's on a very broad level, a book level even. Check out Spaced Out, which you can get anywhere good books are sold. And, of course, read all of the Athletics NBA coverage, which Mike does a great job working with all of their writers as an editor as well. Mike, always appreciate it, sir, and we will definitely talk to you here soon. Thanks
for having me, Craig.
See ya.
And thank you for breaking the news about Aaron Rodgers. Without you, I never would have known.
You're so welcome. See you, buddy.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.